Hello and welcome to Coquitlam Heritage's Civilian Impressions Artist Panel. I'm Candrina Bailey and I'm the Executive Director of Coquitlam Heritage. Our aim when curating this exhibit was to gather together works of art that interpret the experience of war on the home front. While our home front exhibit at Macken House focuses on Coquitlam and home fronts during the 1940s, the toll and the aftermath of conflicts around the world from numerous eras and experiences are represented on our online exhibit by our 18 artists. I will begin our discussion by introducing our panelists, and then we'll transition into a less formal style of dialogue. Nora El Najar is a Lebanese-Canadian author, painter, and avid community volunteer. She has multiple diplomas in English literature and language, immigration law, jewelry design, and holistic nutrition. Nora's paintings Soul Destruction and Voiceless Childhood are featured in Civilian Impressions. Nora has recently released her first book, Life of a Promise, which is her memoir of life during the Lebanese Civil War and her journey to live in Canada. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello. And Susie Hartford. Hello, Susie.
Hi.
Susie Hartford and her family emigrated from Slovakia to Canada when she was a young child. She graduated from the University of the Fraser Valley, where she studied business, media, and communications. During her studies, she took creative art classes and adored working with her hands to create beautiful pieces. This is when she fell in love with mixed media art. The New Life Wings in Civilian Impressions chronicle her family's journey and are tied to her deep faith in angels and their role in guiding people through difficult times in life. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Olga Campbell is a visual artist living in Vancouver, BC. Her art includes photography, sculpture, mixed media painting, and digital photo collage. She has written 2 books, Graffiti Alphabet and A Whisper Across Time, which chronicles her family's Holocaust story, which are represented in her 2 pieces, Metal Wall and Crossing the Wire in Civilian Impressions. Olga, a graduate from Emily Carr School of Art and Design, has had numerous exhibits throughout Metro Vancouver during the last 25 years. And welcome.
Thank you very much.
So when we planned this artist panel, it was meant to be at Place des Arts. It was meant to be in front of a group of people. Of course, our life has changed a lot in the last month.
Yeah.
I was just wondering maybe what some of your impressions are of what we're living through right now. How you're coping, are you on your own? Are you, Do
you want to start with me?
Sure.
Okay. Hi. Hi everyone. It's not easy. I mean, this situation is not easy. I've been through worse situations in my life where even staying home is not safe. Actually, you can't hide from bullets or rockets when you're at home. You have to go to shelters. Mm-hmm. So the blessing about this thing, even though it's scary and you don't know what's going to happen to your family, getting infected or whatever, but at least you know that if you are within the boundaries of your own life with your own apartment or house, at least you have this peace of mind that you'll be okay. But, yes. So when you see so much extreme things in life, you can always adapt to lesser extreme things in life. But that doesn't mean that this situation is not great and scary. Because, for example, my daughter has a problem with her health. Her immunity is compromised. And she's on medication. And I can tell you that I prisoned myself with her at home. And my son is the one who is, doing everything for us. And we don't see him as often because he has an essential job. So he has to go to his work, and we're separated now. He lives in Vancouver. We see him once a week from a distance as well, just to keep her safe. And it's not easy in either way, financially and as a family, of course, but hopefully without thinking there's hope we perish. So we're living on that hope that we're going to conquer this COVID-19 with love, patience, support, and knowledge. And I want to say thank you for everyone who's working hard in their own way to make this possible.
Thank you. Yeah. Olga, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'm in a really fortunate position of not having to work. I'm on my own with my dog. My life is not that different. I see the seriousness of it, and I know that a lot of people are impacted by it, and there are a lot of casualties. But for me, I also see it as an opportunity to reflect on your own life, on the world, and maybe choose better options for the future of the world, to have a more equitable society, just a happier, more loving society.
Great. Yeah. Susie?
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin. There's so much. I have to say, like, the same thing that like Nora said is like going through more difficult times. I was an infant though, when my family I'm gonna cry. We was in like a refugee camp, and we had to live in one room and stuff like that. So I always tell my kids like how hard it was to get here, and what we went through. And like, my parents told me stories, like war stories, about what our family went through. So I tell them, and the same thing, I guess, of what Olga said too, is like, it is such a horrible thing that's happening. We do have to stay inside and protect our society in a loving way. But I do take the time to tell my kids about the other things that went on in history, and that we are fortunate that like we do just have to stay home and like be cautious of like washing our hands and like being in contact with people. And like, we're very fortunate that we don't have bombs dropping on our heads and like more severe issues like that. So it's kind of like this weird place, because it's such a horrible thing that's happening, and it's a pandemic, and it's like very real. But then there's also this other aspect of it that like, yes, thank God it's not like, a war that's causing us to flee our homes and we have to find shelter and like things like that. So it's this weird place that we're left in, and like isolation has taken a toll on people, and like the mental health. And there's just, oh gosh, I could talk the whole time about this. But yeah, so I definitely see what Nora and Olga said. Yeah, and I feel the same. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, and Susie, you sort of touched on this a little bit, but what part of the works that you did and the works that are included in Civilian Impressions, how did your family, if at all, how did your experience with your family sort of influence that?
On my work?
Sure, we'll start with Susie.
So everything that I do is a reflection of my family, because the reason, I'm gonna cry, I'm such a crier, you guys. The reason that I do angel wings is because I grew up religious, and I grew up with a deep sense of faith that like everything would be okay, and that hope is around us and with us, and love. And just gonna cry. I was just gonna cry the whole time. And that yeah, I just I choose to try and make sure that my work is very light and not dark. And that's why I chose to use whites and light blues. I did light blues because we had to cross the ocean. I chose that color, and I put sparrows on my angel wings to represent my mom and my dad. So that's my family history there. And I asked my mom, I said to her, you know, what was the first thing that you thought of when we were in the refugee camp? And she said that, and we came from a really like good family when we were in the communist society. So we were well taken care of. But so she said, I couldn't believe the broken windows and just the run down refugee camp that we had to stay at. So that's why I actually put shattered glass on the sparrows. And I chose to put jewels on the sparrows as well, because we needed money. And my grandma couldn't send us money because of communism. They'd go through it and perhaps take it. So she would can jewelry into cans of meat, and she would send it to us and say, like, you know, be very careful when you're eating the meat. And we'd find this jewelry that we could pawn and use for money. So there's a lot of history that like goes into my art pieces and artwork that it's almost hidden, because unless you ask me or you do read about it, then you don't see all the family history and ideas that are in my work. Yeah.
Great. That's beautiful. Olga?
You know, all of my art is influenced by my family. When I look back on it, even when I didn't realize that it was.
Okay.
And including the 2 pieces in the show. And I wrote about my family in the Holocaust. My mother's whole family was killed. And this was something that I felt totally compelled to do. I didn't have a choice. I felt as if my ancestors were urging me to write this. So it was almost a collaboration between them and me.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one more thing. And the reason that they wanted their story told was not just for their own story or to have a voice, but because of what was going on in the world. It was a cautionary tale, because there is a rise of racism, nationalism, anti-Semitism happening all over again. So it definitely has an impact, the family, on all of my work, the written and the visual.
Great. Thank you. And Nora?
Well, when I was growing up, when you wake up to a world that you want to be happy, and then you look around you and you find so much misery and injustice, and you find the people with power and people with weapons have the say over your life and the life of people you love, and even the people that you don't know.
Right.
So basically, when I wrote my book, I don't want to show one side of anything. I wanted the people to read and see how would a small child look at the world and tell them, we are little kids, you know, but hey, we are there. Enough of hate, enough of killing, enough of injustice, enough. We just want to be happy and live. Look at us right now in front of you. I'm 52. I still think and remember so many bad stuff that happened. Olga does, Susie does, anyone who has been through these difficult situations. It's not easy to forget.
Mm-hmm.
We try, we smile, we have hope, we pray, but we are all humans at the end of the day. And this earth is so beautiful to destroy it with so much hate. Why? Why can't just we live in happiness? Why can't we just live in peace? And this is my question in my book. I don't blame anyone. I blame humanity for what it has done to us. It takes one bad apple to spoil an entire package of good apples. Just one. And then if you do something bad, you can't take it back. You destroy lives, you kill people, and then what? The pain goes on from generation to generation. Every time you remember, it opens up wounds. It makes you cry in pain. Do we need to do that? This is my take about the whole thing. That's why I wanted to participate with my book and with my paintings. Even though I'm not an artist, I'm not an experienced person. I just do it for a hobby. But because there's so much that I wanted to say, if you want to know what happened and you want to protect the new generation and teach them something, we have to be open about our wounds, so that maybe in a way we can tell them, don't go on the same path. Even if hate is so much around you, there's always love that we can fight with, you know? That's my message. I just wanted happiness. I just wanted freedom. I just wanted to live in peace. Just give us this peace. Everyone deserves to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody born on this earth deserves happiness. Everyone. So, you know, this is why I participated, and I was so happy that Coquitlam Heritage did this kind of event, because it was a way for me to tell them, be careful. If you haven't gone inside an accident or you haven't lost somebody, it doesn't mean that it might not happen one day. You don't have to pass through it to feel it that much. You can always avoid it if you can, you know? But I don't know if humanity ever learns. Sometimes I think there is always a memory that you need to remind people that this can happen if we just let it go and let the bad stuff happen, you know?
Right. That's actually a really good segue into, does your artwork give you a sense of healing? And did producing this artwork really help you to find a bit of resolution? Of course, it probably didn't take everything away, but did it help moving forward, Nora?
When I was writing, I was writing like crazy. Like I took the papers and started writing first, the book. When I let's take a book aside, let's do the painting thing. I didn't know that I had so much power inside a small area on a canvas. When I drew the blood, when I drew the eyes, when I drew the details of those destroyed people's lives, I saw everything in those lines. I couldn't believe it. And sometimes I used to stay 2-3 hours without even standing outside on my balcony because I don't have a backyard. I don't have a studio. On my balcony, a small patio, I would freeze outside in the rain, but I was working and I couldn't feel time, you know? And really it didn't heal, but it made me feel like, something went out of my chest. Now somebody else can see if they understand. You know, that's why I didn't go into like, I wanted to draw a specific little head over there. It was more of an expression. And the first two paintings, oh my gosh, the first two paintings that I drew are totally different from the last 10 ones that came after. Something happens to you. Right. It is something like a healing, it may be a resolution, but there is something that helps you. Because once you distance yourself from the pain, you take it out, you remove it, you just distance yourself, and it is not inside of you all the time, it's out there for the world to see. It makes something, it helps you, and then you know that if somebody looks at it and likes it or doesn't like it, but the idea that this person has suffered because of that, and they are still suffering, the idea in itself is a reminder that war is not fun. Death is not fun. Killing is not fun. It's not legal. You don't have the right to take the life of anybody. Anyone has the right to live and be happy. We don't have this right. You know what I mean? And this is a very important statement. What you did with this art exhibition actually is very important. Very important. It's very important. Thank you for that. Thank you for giving us the chance to be able to at least connect those little puzzles that people don't know about, because they need to know, in my opinion, I think.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. This exhibit really has given us the opportunity to bring the humanity into what we do, because often heritage work is interpreting, history books or first-person information. But when we do these types of exhibits, it really gives us the opportunity to allow people to express firsthand and to add a color and depth to the information in a way that we can't necessarily do as heritage professionals. So thank you, and thank you for being open to doing it.
Thank you so much.
Susie, did you, obviously you find this cathartic as well. Did you maybe want to?
Well, regarding the sense of healing or resolution, I felt I wouldn't use those words for me. I would use the word unity, because just specifically for my piece that is in this exhibit, because my parents are separated now, my siblings are grown up, we're still close, like we're all kind of in Maple Ridge and Coquitlam, but it just reminded me that like we did that as a family. So it was more of like a sense of unity than healing and resolution, I would say, for that specific piece. But regarding just my work in general, it is a healing process, because it does remind me that I want to remind everybody that there's still love and light in the world. And while I'm doing it and I'm putting my feelings of love into it, it reminds me that, like, yes, this world is full of love, because sometimes it can show itself other ways. Yeah. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And Olga?
Well, Nora mentioned intergenerational trauma, where the
Mm-hmm.
trauma goes on from one generation to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And a few years ago, I saw that there's a study called epigenetics that shows, I'm sure you're all aware of it, it shows that a trauma of this kind of war and conflict can be passed on genetically through the DNA for up to at least 3 generations. So for me, the healing was kind of backwards and with me and forwards to stop it from going forth to the next generation. And I have definitely lightened my load a lot. The feelings that I grew up with of sadness, grief, those kinds of feelings, haven't had them for 3 years at all since I wrote the book. And I think in order to deal with this intergenerational trauma, I think you have to deal with it. And one really effective or good way of dealing with it is transforming it through art, any of the arts, I think. So yes, it has been healing.
Great.
Yeah.
And do you, as artists, plan out your work in advance, or do you start with a seed, or do you just let sort of your emotions lead you where to go? Maybe Olga, can you? Yeah.
I might have an overall plan, maybe, not always.
Yeah.
Like with the show about the Holocaust, it was about the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I just start working, have no idea, and it just leads me somewhere to the end product.
That's fun.
Yeah, it is fun. Like
And
you enter this magical world,
right,
where
right.
it kind of paints itself. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. So you kind of go into a bit of a zone and let it unfold.
yeah, and it's not always that easy, but
Right.
very often it is.
Nothing in life is it?
Yeah.
Nora, what's sort of your process? We know you're out in the rain.
Yeah. Usually I start with a sketch on a paper, and then I try to copy that sketch in my head to the painting.
Okay.
And then it walks with the painting, because sometimes I might do something and my hand moves in a different way and I find beauty in it. So I continue. If I don't like it, I change it.
Mm-hmm.
And but usually I have an idea of what I'm doing. Without an idea, I cannot just start painting anything. And because my paintings were each chapter of the book was, for each chapter I did a painting.
Okay.
So automatically I will inspire my theme from the chapter, but the painting, of course, it will be a scratch, little sketchy stuff, at least to get into the mood of what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is how it is. It always planned. There's nothing not planned. But when you go, like just like leaving the house, you plan to go to the supermarket, for example, and then suddenly, there's something else I should be doing at the same time. So you have a plan, but then something else comes up.
That's a good analogy of it, actually. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Susie, is it similar for you?
Yeah, it's yeah. Usually I have first it comes with an idea, and that's the thing. Beauty of art is like it really does give us a voice. So like if we have a certain opinion or idea of something that we want to put forward, that's when it kind of starts. And then I usually have a dream about it, or like just you guys can probably relate. It's just in like the oddest moments. You could be washing the dishes and be like, oh, that's what I want to put on there. And like, I have a sketchbook and I sketch it out. And then I go and like try and do those things. And with my work, with mixed media, it could be like metal or clays or like fabrics or like anything like that. And like, sometimes it doesn't work out and then you have to change it. But most of the time, thank God, it does work out. And it's amazing when you step back and you see it and you think like, that looks better than what I envisioned or what I sketched or what I had in my mind. And yeah, it's just like this moment of just bliss when you're done. But the process can be quite long. And like, I don't know about Nora or Olga, but like sometimes I have to like look into it, like research it. It's like I really like love Marie Antoinette, and I'll do something about her, but then I get kind of obsessed and like I want to watch like stories about her and like read articles about her and like really like dive into like whatever it is that I want to say painting, but sculpting, I guess. Yeah, so it's quite the process, I would say.
Yeah. So I wanted to, what you were talking about, you work in mixed media. How do you choose what medium you're going to be using for a particular project?
I would say it just kind of comes to me, or it goes with the theme. Like for this, for the civilians' impressions, like the story with my grandma sending us jewelry and my mom seeing the broken glass at the refugee camp. That's what made me think like, oh, I wonder if I can make something out of jewelry and out of glass and put it on there. And then I thought, what represents my parents? And I thought, okay, the sparrow's really hardworking and diligent. And so it's kind of like this like growing process. And then there'll be other wings that Marie Antoinette, she has lots of like, when I think of her, I think of a lot of like lace and bows and cameos and things like that. So I'll put that on there. I want to do wings with Joan of Arc. And when I think of Joan of Arc, obviously I think of France, and I think of metal. I think of a lot of metal, which I'm working with metal for the first time. I have to say there's a lot I did not know about working with metal. So it's kind of just that with, for me as a mixed media artist, I love working with different mediums, but it can be frustrating because it's not like I'm working with the same thing over and over and over again and getting very comfortable with it. It's always like pushing me, like, what can you do? Can you really can I really sculpt a metal fleur-de-lis or like something like that? And it's just, so it's very exciting for me, but very frustrating at the same time. And a lot of research goes into it as well. Yeah, but I love it.
Do you enjoy that, the sort of learning curve of working with different medium though, the different pieces?
I do. Yeah, I do. I like learning and researching, and yeah, I do. I enjoy it. It is frustrating though at the same time. And I've heard other artists say this as well. And some days it's just like, oh, why don't I have a regular job where I could just go and leave? Like some days it's just like, so frustrating. But then again, when you see the finished product, and it just takes your breath away, it's worth it. And you get that voice of like, these are my feelings, here it is, you can visually look at it. And I feel that's more impactful sometimes than words. Yeah. Or goes hand in hand. Yeah.
Right. Tells its own story.
Mm-hmm.
Olga, what about your medium? I know you do writing as well as your art.
Well, mostly art. Well, like Susie, I love learning new processes and using new things. But my work is very, very loose, not very neat or tidy, and very intuitive. So all of the media, I work in clay, mixed media, even the digital photo collage, it can be fast and, rough. So they all work for me.
That's great. And Nora? What medium do you enjoy?
I when I did a workshop, I loved oil. Mm-hmm. But because of the theme that I chose this time, and because I wanted something bold, sharp, that, and then I didn't want to change my mind. I wanted my feelings to stick on the canvas as fast as it could, because acrylics, actually, when they're there, they're there. With oil, you can always adjust for a couple of days, but with acrylics, when you put them there, they're there. So I wanted my feeling to directly go out and stick on the canvas, because it was a first impression. It was something from heart. It's not something I'm creating a theme of something that doesn't connect with me. It was something personal. Right. So I wanted this personality to show, even though it might shock people, but I wanted it to go there and stick there. Probably in the future, I might work with oil, because I might not be I might not have this intense feeling, the theme might be different. I know that for sure.
Mhm.
But for now, I did acrylic for the entire thing, and I'm happy I did it. And that's basically why. I mean, yeah, this is why I basically use acrylic for this time. But you know, with art, it's so beautiful. Why? Because you want, you are like a little child, and if you say you know everything, it's impossible. The beauty about the journey is that you learn as you go. The mistake becomes a lesson, and the lesson becomes a mistake. You know, it's so beautiful. And then when you're learning, you're progressing. You're still in one place, but your spirit and your soul and your heart and your message has crossed the border to somewhere else. So only an artist will know what I'm talking about and the challenges they have when they start working on anything. No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you, Nora, you did mention that you don't consider yourself an artist. I might disagree with you, but you obviously didn't identify as a child as an artist, but when did that become a piece of your life?
When I was growing, these days, when you say you're an artist, you automatically think that person is working and getting money out of it. Like when you say, I'm a teacher, I'm teaching. No.
Okay.
For me, you know, we label ourselves. Like, you know, if a doctor is a doctor, he might be an artist somewhere, but for me, when I was growing up, I always found beauty with pencils and pens and with drawing. I won several Fabriano prizes. This is an Italian kind of reward, and they reward kids under 12 for their artistic, you know, endeavors. I won them 3 times, but because the war doesn't give you that commodity of fulfilling something you love. I changed 11 schools in my lifetime. 11 schools.
Yeah.
Every single year or 2 years, we have to change and relocate. So it wasn't easy for me to just say, oh, I have this dream, I'm going to be an artist. My best dream that was for me, after coming to Canada and going back, was to be able to come back to the place where it's so peaceful, I can focus on my dreams. I don't want to be scared anymore. I'm tired. I'm tired of listening to people dying and people suffering. It's so much. It breaks you from the inside. It takes away something that nobody else can understand. What is it? You're broken. And then you reach out for others. Some people might understand what you're feeling. Others might not care. And then you start to say, where is the hope and where is the love? You know? So what I really want to say again, Kendrick, what you have done with this World War II and this civilian impression thing, and I hope you keep on doing everything with that, because it's a way to try not to repeat the mistakes of the past. And these mistakes are not just mistakes, they are devastating destruction. And and you know what I mean? So me, Susie, Olga, and so millions of people across the universe here on Earth have a story and have a painful experience to express. So why not we express something about, you know, beauty and hope, instead of we have to suffer to get to that point of, you know, if we can stop it, why not? But this is what life is anyway. And you know something? When I drew my colors in the paintings, you might think they're going to be dark. No, actually, there's only one dark, but the rest are, all of them have flowers and they have colors. Because we are, from the inside, we are not evil. We have goodness in our souls. When we're small children, nobody is born evil. It is life that makes stuff and makes you, you know, and then the clutter of things changes people over time. So basically, I still have the hope, I still have the love, and it shows in my writing. Even in my book, I didn't focus on the bad stuff. I just talked about them, but inside, when you read, you find hope. There's love, there's hope, there's family, there's friends. You know, there are messages that we're not giving up.
Right. That's great. And Susie, have you always identified as an artist as well, or did it come to you at a time? Or?
So I think I could probably relate more with Nora on that, is because as a child, like I was always building things. I was always in my backyard with clay and like all that. But like I didn't think of that as like a career. Like I didn't think of that I could actually like, oh, you could be an artist. Like that's what, and I think maybe it is from as well with my parents being immigrants, like, and us being immigrants, they wanted me to go into a job that has a union, or like be safe, like, you know, go to a hospital job or like something like really steady. And like the other thing I always loved was advertising, and that itself is like an art form, advertising, marketing, like it's very like artistic as well. So I thought, okay, well, if I'm not going to go on that. And I also always really loved music. I sing, I used to play piano and violin. Like I was always on that artistic scale. But it wasn't a career option. It wasn't like, wow, I could actually like do this. So I went into business, and the same, like I had switched schools. I was at BCIT, and then I went to UFB, and I was in the business program. And then I was having a lot of trouble with like the mathematics side of it. And I was in the counselor's office, and they're like, oh, this new program came up. It's the Associate of Arts degree in Media and Communications. You can transfer a lot of your credits, and you can take a whole bunch of art classes and advertising classes. And I literally remember crying and just being like, that's perfect. Like it was perfect. So I went, and I had to do art classes, but I thought like, this is great. I need this for the Associate of Arts. I didn't actually think I would walk out of there and be an artist. I thought I'd walk out of there and go into a media job or into a marketing job. And now media and marketing is so intense that I just feel so blessed that I did fall upon the arts, because I'm so happy creating my angel wings as my canvas and like doing that. So I think I was the same way. Like I was always artistic, but I never actually thought like, oh, I could do this as a career. And that being said, I am still a very young artist. I just started doing this about like 3 years ago, very slowly. And now I'm continuing, and it's progressing. But as an artist, you don't wake up and make lots of money off of it the next day. So it's a process, but I have young kids. They're upstairs right now watching a show, but yeah. So I've got young kids and a family, and I'm focusing mainly on that, and then my art as well. So yeah, so I've always been artistic, and happy to be at this point in my life now. Yeah.
Great. And Olga, have you always identified as an artist?
No, I agree with Susie and Nora. I remember drawing as a child, but we immigrated when I was 5. My parents didn't have any money. There weren't the opportunities. So I was 42 when I was a social worker, and took a couple of classes and thought it was fun. So went to Emily Carr. And in a way, I'm glad that I went late, because I didn't have to, I continued half-time as a social worker and then as doing art, and I didn't have to rely on it, which I think changes it too.
Mm-hmm.
That is great that you were able to do that. Was there an impetus or reason why you decided to take it up in your 40s?
Yeah, I took a couple of painting classes and thought that was really fun. And then I come back to my job as a social worker and think, yeah, not as much fun. And somebody suggested applying to Emily Carr, so I threw some things in a garbage bag. Somebody said I should get a portfolio. They accepted me. So
That's fantastic.
5 years. Yeah.
That is fantastic. And are there other artists in your family, or is it just you, Olga?
No, there were a lot of artists in my family. My mother's twin sister was an artist. She got her master in Poland, her master's. They were all killed, right? Her mother went to art school when she was 42 in Poland. On my father's side, have you heard of Tamara De Lempitska? Okay, she's a well-known Art Deco artist from the 20s.
Okay.
My father's first cousin, and her sisters were artists. So there are a lot of artists there, but I didn't really think about it much.
Right. That's very funny that she went to school at 42 and you did as well.
There are other coincidences too.
And Nora? Are there other artists in your family?
The older generation, I don't remember. I don't know actually, but the new generation, oh yeah, there are. There
Mm.
are two of them. They're artists, but they do with the interior design.
Uh-huh.
And there are two of them who did presidential palaces. They painted the walls and they did designs and stuff. They are very artistic, yes.
Wow.
But in the older generation, I don't remember. I don't know actually.
Mhm.
Um, we- I don't remember anyone who was an artist. But the new generation from our family, yes, there are.
Hmm. That's interesting too. Susie, do you have art?
Nobody that was an established artist that I know of. Again, everybody on my mom and dad's side is pretty much still in Slovakia. So I don't know everyone that well, but none that I know that is like an actual like artist that has sold work. But my parents are very artistic, even though they're like, oh no, like that's not that good. Like they can draw, or like my mom like sews or creates things. And I call her to help me sometimes, because she's just so perfect at everything she does. I don't know how to explain it. Like, so it's an art in that sense. Like if you ask her like to draw something or do something, she does it like so perfectly. And yeah, so I saw that in my parents, like even as a child with them, but they never thought they were any good. They were always like, oh, it's not that good, but it is great. And then now I have two kids. My brother has two kids and my sister has two kids. So between the six of the children in our family, they're all artistic, if it's drawing or music. Yeah, music's really big in my family. Like I know my grandpa, I think both my grandpas like played instruments, and singing, like we all like sing pretty well. And like, yeah, so like it's there definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, you were talking about your mom sewing. We see that a lot in sort of home craft, where we wouldn't think of those women as artists necessarily, but the
They
sewing
are.
that they did and the beautiful piecework that they did, and meticulous like your mom, it's some of them were definitely artists. They definitely
Yeah.
were telling a story and trying to keep something alive in what they were doing. It certainly wasn't just to keep the kids warm.
Yeah,
It could have done a much more simple job to do, like just keep the kids warm.
exactly.
So what has your identity as an artist meant to you? Susie, we can start with you.
um I really would say two main things. Like first, having a voice. I'm very shy kind of when it comes to talking about things, and I want to talk about things. And so I like that I can create something and say like, this is how I feel about it, because a really big piece of me is like, I never want to hurt anybody or like say something out of line or like things like that. So when I make an art piece, like I really can say like, this is coming from my feelings and how I feel. Like, and with art, you can reflect on it and be like, wow, I really relate with that. Or like, oh, I don't really or I disagree with that, but like, I can see where they're coming from. Or like, it's just a whole different like voice that you have. It's almost like a subtle, but so impactful voice. And also the unique sense of style. I ran into, this kind of sums it up. I ran into a girl that I had in my high school, and she said, well, what do you do now? And I said, well, I create angel wings. And she's like, oh, of course you do. So it just suits me so well. And I love that uniqueness that, I create different styles and size of the angel wings, and I decorate them as my canvas. And I love that that's my unique voice and my personality. Yeah.
That's great. Olga, what has your identity as an artist meant to you as
Well,
you kind of stepped into it?
I can't think of a better way of expressing myself.
Mm-hmm.
And like you, Susie, I might not be as outgoing in the world, but I feel confident when I'm doing art.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first day that I was at Emily Carr, it was really emotional because I just felt as if I'd come home.
Oh.
Yeah, and I've been home ever since. So.
That's lovely. And Nora, what has it meant to you, your identity as an artist?
For me, to be able to use the pen to write something, to create something that I know will affect people when they read,
Mm-hmm.
give them something to think about, be able to have a voice, because as women, we are now in a place where we can express more
Right.
than women in the maybe 80 years or 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have a role to play. We're not using something for bad. We're using something for the good. We're creating. And the same as the pen, you have the brush. With a stroke of a brush, you can show an idea that you don't have to explain it. And
Right.
this is the power of art. Art is so powerful. You can deliver a message everywhere to the world with no need to explain anything. When people look at art, or they hear music, or they read a book, they are changing without even knowing they're changing. So artists have a duty to do something that other things cannot. And it's the power to create something better than what the world already is, and to reflect on things that happened that we might have a chance to bring to better resolutions in the end. So this is the very important role, even if we're little artists, blooming artists, well-established artists. Art is very, very, very important, and it is everything in any culture, in anything in the world. You look at their art, you look at their paintings and buildings and whatever, and you know these people from their art.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way of putting it, actually. So I just wanted to reflect a little bit on how conflicts are reported in the media. And according to sort of your understanding of conflict, whether you went through it personally or it was a family conflict that you're still feeling, do you think that the media reports conflicts accurately? And what do you think they get right? And what do you think is missing out of the reporting?
With me,
Sure.
Nora? Okay, for me, who have experienced the media so much in my life, and I realized something, that anything that happens, it's all about politics when it comes to media, usually, unfortunately.
Mm.
And when politics plays, it gives little room for justice and their true voice of what is happening. When I was living during the war and I saw many of my friends die or family members die, I was so afraid, not because of anything, but because their blood is going to be ketchup for somebody else. They will not understand why these people died and who killed them. And my fear that history might not give them their own due respect what happened. So politics, the media, they have a very essential role of really showing what is happening to the world. They have a very important role showing the truth of what is happening, and the truth actually sometimes is known at a later stage when it's too late to be able to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays we are more at a place where everybody has a phone, everybody can take a picture, if somebody at the far end of the world can show something injustice happening, it's different. But the times when I was living during the war, this is 30 years ago, you can't. What something happens, maybe nobody knows about it until it goes out to the public, and by the time it goes out, it's too late. And maybe it comes out in a different way than it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think the media has a very, very powerful hand at showing the reality of things if they decide to, and the opposite as well.
So do you find that maybe the media, for whatever reason, isn't as good at finding the individual stories, the actual stories of the people living through the conflict?
They are actually, this, I'm telling you, this time we're living in is much more fair to what's happening. But the time like many years ago, even before the 30, 40, 50 years ago, there are so many things that happened probably we didn't know about.
Right.
Only the people who suffered them, maybe the truth have died with them. Who knows? Because we didn't have this active media as it is right now. You go social media now, you can be sitting peacefully in your home, and you know at the end of the world there's something that is happening. Maybe you can help those other people at the end of the world because of social media, of the media. You know, we are now a big, huge village. What happens in one side of the world impacts the entire universe. And this is what's happening with COVID, for example. Something that started somewhere, for example, has its impact all over, you know?
Yeah.
So now we cannot say now that the media now is like the media when I was growing up. It's totally different. It's totally different now.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, there's the media, but there's also sort of civilian media with social media that helps to complement it or supplement it, right?
Yeah, people are now more educated. They know more. They see more. They are more into their people's lives. I can be sitting here. I can be helping somebody so far away at the end of because they have a phone. We can connect with each other, you know. And this is something good, actually, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I think there's hope. There's hope always that we can do better.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I'm happy with the out now. For example, at this now with us talking like this,
Yeah.
and this kind of connection, right? How it will be easier for many to get the message, to be involved, to be able to have the courage to go out and say, you know something, this happened to me as well, and I don't like it. And I want the world to listen to me because, you know, I have this message and whatever. So I think we are at the place in time where we don't have an excuse not to be able to speak out and say, you know, you guys, you did bad job somewhere, or you did a good job.
Right.
You know, we can always, because it's always it's beautiful to be able to bridge everything to a very good outcome at the end.
Right.
For me, I love peace so much, and I ask for peace all the time because I love what peace can do. With peace, you can love, you can build a family, you can have hopes, you can have dreams, you can have so many things when you have peace. But when you don't have the peace, you don't have anything. Your hopes are broken, your family is destroyed. You don't have anything without peace. Peace is very important. Peace of mind, peace of the soul, and peace of the body.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Nora brought up a good point. When you're talking about a conflict that happened 30 years before or now, Olga, the conflict that you most look at happened 80 years ago, 90 years ago. So are you finding that media gets it right, or do you find that they're missing things?
No, maybe after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
The truth comes out. But I find with most mainstream media, there's a lot of bias depending on who owns the TV station, the radio station, the newspaper. You're going to get a slanted point of view. So you have to become really media savvy. And even if you're media savvy, it's still hard, I think, to navigate to find out what's true. But I agree with the social media. You get information immediately. And in places of conflict where people aren't aware of it, then you find out. But it also can be used for disinformation and the wrong information. So I think there's a potential for good.
Mm-hmm. And social media still can be, what's that called? It can still be censored. China does this. You know, there's different places in the world that can censor social media and black out information, right?
Very much.
Yeah.
You know, the media is a very sensitive topic because it's like a sword with both sharp edges.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The same line, the same word can be interpreted in a different way, from a different perspective, from a different target. You know what I mean? If I say I love you, oh, what does she mean? Does she mean she loves you, or she doesn't mean that? You know, So it's really a very thin line between the truth and what we need to believe as a truth and what we have to believe as a truth. It's just
Well, yeah, and it also depends on, like Olga was saying, the media outlet too. We have media outlets that I think are probably more dependable, and other media outlets that we know are owned by certain people or maybe influenced by certain people. So, Susie, with you, did you, how are you feeling about the different, any conflict really, or
Yeah.
when you see there's so many conflicts in the world all the time, but when you see the media coverage of it, are you feeling like, yeah, that's probably the way it is, or?
No, I think since the very, very beginning of media, even going back to like Marie Antoinette, like I think she was actually a victim of like propaganda and all that. So, and even nowadays, like I think you're right, whoever owns like the media station, they have a set agenda for what they put out there. So, but I think the positive thing is that yes, our society is more educated in this, and we have learned to think for ourselves, and that's something that I like really teach my kids to like think for themselves, that they can listen to all the different media outlets and they can listen to their friends, and that they can decide for themselves what they would choose to take in and what they choose to leave alone. Yeah, so I definitely, that's what I think. Yeah, that there's definitely a set agenda when it comes to media and the different outlets and things.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree that social media, it's such a great voice. It's such a loud voice, and it's hard, I think, some days to determine what you should listen to and what you shouldn't listen to. And I think that it does cause a lot of panic. And but then I also think it causes a lot of good things, like yes, we can help people across the world, or our neighbor next door. There's things like the GoFundMe account, so we can kind of zoom in on those civilians that are in conflicts and help out our neighbors and our fellow human beings. So that's like the best thing about social media. But I think like the negative thing about social media is just it's such a vast noise of just so many opinions. And sometimes I'm very old school, and I think like, oh, instead of arguing on social media or like things like that, like, is it taking away from a group going and protesting in front of City Hall or something to change things? Like, are we just these zombies that are now fighting on social media, when like if you really believe in something, like, or you want a bill to be passed or changed, like who's protesting? Like, how I feel like it's changed our society in that way as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right, there's good things and there's bad things, but with just media in general, I think we really have to think for ourselves. And I think we have to seek out opinions of trusted people that are around us.
Candrina, can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
I found since this COVID situation that the media is being used in a really creative and a really good way, like what you're doing now. And we're getting and all sorts of things are made available. People are just stepping up and using it in the best way possible, I think.
I agree with you. I think if COVID happened 10 years ago, we would be having a very different existence right now. Zoom didn't exist 10 years ago. Yes, social media existed, but it was slightly different. So yeah, I think the fact that this is happening at this time really is significant in what we get to do and how we still get to connect with one another. One point that you had made, Susie, about social media is how loud it is. And I have to agree with you. Often it feels, and maybe it's because of, for instance, with Twitter, you only have 280 characters. Sometimes what you say to get your word across is often very biting or very, not you personally, of course.
Yeah.
Royal you can often be quite biting because you're trying to make a succinct but very definite point. And sometimes often that comes across as really mean, and it's not necessarily a way of building consensus. It's just a lot of people yelling at each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, in some ways. Any other comments about social media or the media or in war, in conflict?
You know, everything in life is governed by humanity.
Yeah.
Everything. And we as a humans, we make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
No one is perfect. I'm not perfect. No one is perfect. And you even in every profession, there is someone who's going to mess up somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't mean that we should labelize that the media or any. We as a humans have to accept the fact that we make mistakes. Once we accept that we make mistakes, we are ready to listen to mistakes, you know, and then figure out a way to go around it and just adjust it and make it right. And this is what's needed in the world. I'm not perfect for sure. And when sometimes I have fun like looking at so many different channels and I say, oh my gosh, look at us. Look at us. You know, what are we doing? Okay, we have different ideas, different perspective, whatever, but at the end of the day, we are humans and humans make mistakes. The best thing we can do is try to avoid them and try to be leaders in making others believe that we can always make a change for the better,
right,
in anything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And art is one of the forms that teaches us that, you know, something, this is what the picture was, but this is how I painted it.
Right.
So there's always two sides of the same coin in anything in life.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's a really good segue into, you know, what role does art or artists, what role do artists have in telling the story of conflict? And do they still have, I mean, back in World War I, the Canadian government actually hired professional artists to go out and depict the war from different perspectives. Does art and do artists still play an important part in discussing difficult challenges and depicting conflict? Susie, do you want to go on?
Yeah, we definitely do, because we can put our feelings and our emotions into what we see is happening. And again, like, art is just so loud and so impactful, but in a peaceful way, because you're not hurting anybody, or you're not, I don't know how to explain it other than that. And it is so important, and because it's almost, you can like document all the wars and how even civilians were feeling during the wars, and even just life in general, by just looking back on the artwork. And that is just so impactful. And you can look at the art and you can put words to it, you can put your own words to it, and you could just sit in the feeling of like our past. So I think it is really important. We need to reflect on our past, so hopefully we can learn from it. So it's really important that the artists keep doing it. And I'm excited to see the art that will come out of even COVID. Not that it's a good situation, but like, I'm sure there's plenty of artists that they have, or they are putting onto canvas what they're feeling, and it will need to be listened to, and it will need to be kept in this history that we're going through right now.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. Olga?
I think it's very important. I think artists still document what's going on, but they go beyond the surface and they transform it through their emotions and their feelings. And if they're good at it, then they can convey those emotions and feelings to the viewer, and they can maybe make a change in the person, or give a vision of something else that's possible to the person. So I think it's a very powerful way of talking about conflict.
Mm-hmm. That's a really interesting point, actually, that art allows, or an artist, art allows an artist to actually get to the emotion of the situation, where often journalists try to keep a little bit back and try to keep their emotions out of it, but an artist can look at it in a different perspective.
I want to share with you something Leonardo da Vinci said. Leonardo da Vinci, he said, art is the queen of all sciences, communicating knowledge to the generations of the world. Mm-hmm. So when you say that it's the queen of all sciences, it means everything, whether it's the queen, because at the end of the day, sciences, right? Those working in sciences, at the end of the day, they need someone to talk about their work as well.
Mm.
So we are living in a cycle of things. Everyone, we impact each other without even knowing.
Mm-hmm.
We need each other without even knowing. We cannot function alone.
Right.
So art is kind like a medium, like a place that shows and exposes everything about everything in society.
Mm-hmm.
Not one part, not half a part, about humanity.
Mm-hmm.
We are humans. And this is where art plays a very important role in making us special, in showing our happiness, our misery, our conquers, our journey about this. If we don't want to know about anything, no need to do anything about art, not paint, not write, not do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know. So nothing continues from generation to generation without a pen, without a brush. What do we have?
Mm-hmm.
What can we know? Nothing. With a book, you know the history. With a painting, you know the history, and you know maybe the future. Who knows? You understand me? It's very powerful, and I'm so glad that we had this conversation today, because I feel so blessed to be able to express with my pen and with my brush something that might affect one person. I'm happy to change the life of one person if I could. One person, and that person will change the life of somebody else.
Right.
And it rippled in society.
Right. I wish I had taken this off of Twitter, but I follow a lot of writers and dancers on Twitter, and somebody had tweeted out that for some reason governments like to slash artist budgets generally, just in general, but now that we have this COVID, and they said this in a much more elegant way, but now that we're all at home with COVID, we're all depending on artists. We all want to watch TV or to read a book or to, look at art or to take a virtual tour of a museum. We're all very, very dependent on art right now.
Mm-hmm.
As people, we are several entities. We are mind, body, soul, spirit, heart, everything. You can't live alone on the heart. You can't depend only on the mind. We are all together. You have times where you need to be working with your mind, but to other times you need your heart to have also its own pleasures as well. You can't divide anything, and to divide things like this it's not normal. You can't. We are one of everything, and everything is important. So sometimes money comes a priority, sometimes interest. Of course, artists are not that because they are not producing something that gives billions to, you know what I mean? There's no profit maybe so much like doing something in other fields. But even I know so many people. I know somebody who is a scientist actually, and he is a doctor, and he did something with an MRI machine in France. He was able to invent something with that machine. Yeah. This guy is a violinist. And he says always that without his music, his mind is not working properly to design new things.
Right.
He plays the violin, and then he sits down and he makes up new inventions in science.
Yeah.
You cannot separate it.
Yeah, exactly. So one last question to you ladies, and thank you so much for contributing and opening your hearts to this and just being so open to it. Thank you so much. Are you producing art right now through this COVID time, or how is your art supporting you or not supporting you through COVID right now? Susie?
At first, it was actually quite hard to get my hands on the materials that I needed because I didn't want to go out to the store. And then there was an issue of like ordering things, and like that has kind of relaxed a little bit now that we're seeing a little bit of progress in the numbers. But so I can go out and get some of the materials that I need. So that was an issue. And then I do have a 7 and 8-year-old at home, so they're my first priority. So I'm spending a lot of time with them. So I would say that I'm not making as much art as I thought. Like when this first started and I thought, oh, well, we're going to be at home for months and like a long time, like I'm going to get so much artwork done. Well, no, I have to be my kids' teachers now. And like, I have to, you know, take them like outside for a walk or something like that. And like, you know, I still have all that. So I'm not creating as much as I wanted to, but I am creating. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of us, you know, we thought we'd learn 10 languages and this was going to be and maybe it hasn't come quite to fruition for us.
Yeah. But at least we're doing it. You're going slowly, but
yes.
surely.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
We're becoming better cooks.
Yes.
Hopefully.
I've made so much traditional like Slovak food for the kids, which has been really, really nice. And it's so time consuming, but it's so delicious. Yeah, Nora, you're right.
Olga, how's your art or cooking or?
I'm cooking Polish.
Nice.
And eating and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I've been doing some, not a lot, but I plan to do more. I'm playing Photoshop tennis with 2 friends. So you do something, you send it to them, they send it back.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's really fun. And 4 of us are getting together on Zoom, and we have some mixed media that we're going to do and show. So I've done a bit of that. And there was a free Photoshop course for 8 hours a day for 5 days. So I did that. So
Wow.
yeah, not linear, but doing it.
That's great. And Nora?
Well, besides cooking and baking and doing bread, I'm very happy. We're gonna have some extra pounds, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I have 2 extra canvases on hold. I bought them just before, and I knew I'm going to be stuck at home, so I kept them, but I didn't do anything. Yesterday actually was the first time I set a plan, because I have to start expressing myself in a way, and I think the pen is easier for me than doing the painting. The kids at home, I can't have the patio for me, so I'm starting my new book. I have it all in my head. I just need to start building the framework of my book, and moving on hopefully with the book, because I can at least go to a corner in my apartment and do some writing. With the painting thing, I don't think I have this freedom. They need to stay outside now. It's getting hot. They need the little patio for them. So I don't know how painting's gonna wait a little bit.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you again, all of you.